Have you ever felt like you're still living with someone you once loved deeply, but now it's just two shadows passing each other in the same house? No fights, no betrayal, but also no connection. Love doesn't disappear overnight. It dies slowly when no one takes care of it. If you've ever felt that way, this video is for you. Share your thoughts in the comments. Where are you in this story? Let your words reach someone else who needs to feel understood. You're still living together, but it feels like you're next to a stranger. You still share meals, sleep in the same bed, but between you is a distance without a name. Cold, quiet, and growing larger with each day. No betrayal, no fights, no one walking out, but also no loving glances or light touches that make the heart flutter. Love doesn't disappear in one night. It erodes slowly, with every moment of neglect, every word left unsaid. Are you in a relationship like that? If you are, don't look away from this video, because the story you're about to hear won't just help you see yourself more clearly. It will open a door to reconnect, to revive love, and most importantly, to make sure you don't live with regret when it's too late. If this is your first time visiting the channel, hit subscribe and like so you don't miss out on exciting upcoming content. People in love can still lose each other, not because love ends, but because they stop touching each other's hearts. Sophia sat alone in a cold kitchen, staring at a cup of tea that had gone cold, one she made for two, but only she drank. Her husband Daniel was still there, living in the same house, eating the same meals, sleeping in the same bed. But between them was a void that had no name, no arguments, no betrayal, but also no longing gazes, no soft touches that once made the heart tremble. She still loved him. She believed he still loved her. But their life now felt like a contract signed out of habit. Each day played out like a tape on loop. Good morning, I'm off to work. Dinner, and then silence swallowed by the night. Something inside Sophia was dying. Not the love, but the belief that it could still be saved. Until one evening, while cleaning out her grandmother's old wooden box, Sophia found a yellowed letter about a woman named Grandma Amalia, whom her grandmother once described as the last woman who truly understood what love means. She wrote, "If one day you feel that love is no longer there, don't believe it's dead. Maybe you just haven't asked the right person yet." As if awakened by something deep within, Sophia decided to do something she'd never thought of before. To seek out Grandma Amalia, though she wasn't sure if the woman was still alive or even real. The solution begins with action, not by waiting for the other person to change, but by stepping out of the emotional dead zone yourself. Sophia stopped waiting for her husband to come back. She set out to find herself again, to find the fire that once made her fall in love with him, not through tears, but through the choice to act before it was too late. If you want to save your love, then stop trying to keep it still. Stones stay still, rivers flow, and only what flows stays alive. Grandma Amalia looked Sophia straight in the eye, her gaze so deep it felt like she could read every crack in the young woman's heart. The small wooden house where she lived nestled under the shade of an old tree, quiet yet warm like a memory that refused to fade. Sophia told her everything, about the silence, the distance, about Daniel, the man who was still by her side, and yet somehow not there at all. When she stopped, hoping for some magical advice, Grandma Amalia simply smiled and said, "Love is not a stone. Stones are cold, hard, and motionless. But people often treat love like it's a stone, leave it there, and expect it to survive on its own." She picked up her teacup, thin steam rising into the quiet space between them. Love is a river. If you don't let it flow, it will rot. If you don't feed it with small drops of rain each day, it will dry up. That sentence hit Sophia straight in the heart. How long had she and Daniel simply left love alone without nurturing it? How long since they created new moments together, asked each other with real care, touched one another with their eyes? Love doesn't die on its own. It starves to death from neglect, from the naive belief that love alone is enough. The solution: treat love like a river. Feed it every day with small, simple things. A question asked without obligation, a glance that actually sees, a hug for no reason. The river will flow again, if you're willing to start by lifting the first bucket. When Sophia left the house that day, she didn't have a clear answer. But she knew one thing. Her love wasn't dead, it was just drying up. And she would be the one to pour the water first. Sophia used to believe that as long as there was love, the relationship would survive. She trusted in the power of shared history, silent sacrifices, and the trials they had overcome together. But over time, she began to see a brutal truth. Love without connection, without emotional nourishment and understanding, is no different than a fire with no oxygen. It fades until all that's left is ash and silence. Grandma Amalia called it the sweet trap, where people believe that physical presence alone is proof of love, where conversations are reduced to logistics rather than emotional bridges. She said real connection begins with emotion, not the physical. And for a woman, nothing feels lonelier than lying next to a man who no longer sees her. They hear her words, but they don't truly listen. They respond, but they don't really care. They're present, but they no longer touch her inner world. Sophia began to recognize the signs she had overlooked. Every time she tried to open up, Daniel rushed to offer advice, interrupted her, or shut her down, instead of simply staying silent and listening. Whenever she said she was tired, anxious, or hurt, he dismissed her with things like, "You'll be fine," or "Don't overthink it." And after each time, she withdrew just a little more, until the silence between them became the new normal. Amalia looked at her without judgment and asked one simple question. Do you feel seen, heard, and understood? Or are you just existing next to someone who used to love you deeply? Sophia didn't answer, but her eyes welled up with tears, and she knew the answer had already been spoken. Stop wasting another day living in weakness and chaos. Subscribe to Stoic Success now to build an unbreakable mindset, master your emotions, and face life like a warrior. Grandma Amalia said, a woman can only open her heart when she feels safe. Not financially safe or sheltered under a roof, but emotionally safe. A place where she can speak her mind without being laughed at, where she can cry without shame, where she can simply be herself with all her mess, contradictions, and wounds. Without that space, a woman will retreat, and when she does, the relationship begins to drift, without the man even noticing. Sophia remembered the times she tried to open up to Daniel about her fears around aging, the changes in her body that made her feel less confident, less attractive. His responses were always dismissive or joking. He didn't mean any harm, but that lack of sensitivity was enough to teach her to stay quiet. She didn't want to become the wife who always complains, so she began hiding her feelings, a little more each day. Amalia said that when a woman chooses silence, it's not because she wants to, it's because she's been hurt too many times for speaking up. She doesn't feel heard. She doesn't feel understood. She no longer feels protected. And inside her, a crack begins to grow. A woman needs more than someone beside her. She needs someone who's sensitive enough to notice when she's trying to open up and strong enough to hold that space for her. Sophia stayed quiet for a long time after hearing this. She didn't blame Daniel, but she understood that for a relationship to come back to life, the man has to learn how to become a safe place where a woman can fully express herself. Because if she can't return to you emotionally, then sooner or later, no matter how much she still loves you, she will leave. No one wakes up one morning and suddenly stops loving the person next to them. No fire goes out overnight. It all begins with the small things: a missed hug, a smile that goes unanswered, a simple "you look beautiful today" that vanishes for no reason. Love doesn't die. Passion doesn't die. They just get buried under the dust of routine, responsibility, and nameless obligations. Sophia clearly remembered the way Daniel used to look at her when they first fell in love. As if she were a miracle he couldn't believe he was lucky enough to have. But over time, that look disappeared, replaced by a blank stare, like they were just roommates locked in a lifelong lease. They still lived together, handled everything together, from trash schedules to utility bills. But somewhere in the long list of things we have to do, they forgot about what they wanted to do. They no longer touched each other out of longing. No more kisses without a reason. No more hugs just to feel the other person breathe. Grandma Amalia reminded Sophia of something simple but powerful. There are two kinds of intimacy. One born out of duty, the other out of desire. One says, we should be close because we're married. The other says, I crave you because you make me feel alive. When intimacy becomes routine, it turns into a cold obligation, and passion slowly fades. Not because the love is gone, but because the feeling is. Sophia sat in silence, struck by the realization. She used to think that just being a good wife, cooking, cleaning, showing care at the right moments, was enough to keep love alive. But she had forgotten something crucial. The man she loved didn't need a caretaker. He needed someone who made him feel alive. And she needed that too. From him, a fiery gaze, a touch that made her heart race, a small surprise that reminded her she was still a woman who was deeply desired. As men enter their 50s, many begin to believe that what they've done over the years is enough to prove their love. They think that after all the time spent together, women no longer need sweet words, small gestures, or the affection they once offered so effortlessly. But that belief is a silent trap, one that kills intimacy without anyone realizing it's happening. Grandma Amalia sighed as she spoke about this. She had seen too many men who thought physical touch is enough, forgetting that before the body, a woman needs her heart to be touched. They skipped the emotional foreplay, the sincere check-ins, the warm glances they used to give without thinking. Compliments disappear. Surprise becomes rare. A simple handhold starts to feel like a forgotten ritual from the past. Sophia began to understand why she felt lonely, even with her husband beside her every day. It wasn't that he didn't love her, it was that he forgot how to show it. Not because he did something wrong, but because he stopped doing what was right. And the dangerous part was that Daniel didn't even realize he was losing his wife. Bit by bit. Not through betrayal, but through neglect. Men often think, she knows I love her, I don't need to say it anymore. But love that isn't spoken, shown, or expressed is no different from keeping a beautiful gift in a box and expecting the recipient to be moved by it. Women need to feel special, and that doesn't come automatically with time. It comes from a man who chooses to nurture connection, not because he has to, but because he wants to. When Sophia realized this, she stopped waiting for Daniel to change. She decided to start with herself. A compliment without warning, a spontaneous hug, a tender look like the ones they once shared. Because sometimes one person's effort is enough to stir a heart that's gone cold. There's a truth very few men are willing to face. The woman beside them is no longer the same girl from 10 or 20 years ago. She has lived. She's been through storms. She's given birth. She's sacrificed. She's changed. But the sad thing is, many men still look at her through the same outdated lens. Not with love, but with assumptions. They assume she's still the same, still fine, still able to endure everything like before. They don't see the quiet fears, the changes in her body, the deeper thoughts about life, self-worth, and the time that's slipping away day by day. Grandma Amalia said, women after 50 don't need a man who can handle everything. They need someone who listens to them, talk about aging without mocking them. They need someone who will sit down and let them speak about old dreams never fulfilled, about the emptiness they feel when they look in the mirror, about the backaches with no clear cause, or simply the fear of being forgotten. They don't need pity. They need a true companion, someone willing to walk with them through the stage of life society so often ignores. Sophia realized she was no longer looking for old-school romance, roses, candles, or empty sweet talk. What she craved was a real conversation, a meaningful touch, a dinner where Daniel wasn't just there in body, but fully present in heart. But Daniel didn't see those changes, not because he didn't care, but because he didn't pay attention. He continued treating her the same way he had for the past 20 years, without realizing that what she needed now had changed. A woman over 50 doesn't need to be served. She needs to feel connected. She needs to know that the changes within her don't make her a burden or a mystery. If a man is sensitive enough to recognize that, The relationship doesn't have to quietly fall apart. Don't wait for change to come from someone else. If you feel something's missing, you have to be the one to start. That was the first thing Grandma Amalia told Sophia when she asked how to rekindle a relationship that had gone cold. Many people, especially women, wait for change to come from the man. They stay silent, they endure, they hope. But hope is not a strategy. It doesn't bring anything back to life unless it's followed by action. Amalia didn't offer complicated theories. She spoke only of simple but powerful things. Ask him what's made him smile lately. Share a fear you've never spoken out loud. Bring up an old memory, a moment that once made both of you laugh or cry. Don't start with blame. Start with sincerity, with real curiosity about the other person's inner world. And most importantly, listen not just with your ears, but with your heart. Grandma Amalia also emphasized that everyone has a different love language. Some people need words of affirmation, some need touch, some need quality time, thoughtful actions, or small, unexpected gifts. If you don't know the other person's love language, every attempt at connection will feel like two people speaking different languages. And you can't expect him to understand if you don't help him learn yours. Sophia took every word to heart. She started by leaving small notes with gentle messages. She hugged him a little longer each morning. She looked into his eyes when they talked, instead of talking while wiping down the counter or folding clothes. And something unexpected happened. Daniel began to change, not because he was asked to, but because he felt the change in her. And his heart began to stir again, like it did in the beginning. Grandma Amalia was right. The only way to restart connection is to be the one who creates the first flow. Just give genuinely, consistently, and love will find its way back. Sophia returned home no longer carrying the illusion that Daniel would magically change just because she had gone on some journey to find love. She wasn't expecting surprise romantic gestures or some grand apology. Instead, she came back with something simpler: initiative. And strangely enough, just by changing her perspective, something within her began to shift. She stopped waiting in silence. She began initiating conversations, not with small talk, but with truth. She told him about the feelings she had kept hidden, about her fear of growing old alone in a two-person relationship, about how she felt invisible in her own home. No blame, no complaints, just honest sharing. And what surprised her most was that Daniel actually listened. They started spending evenings without TV, without phones. Just the two of them and the stories they had once left behind. They cooked together, not out of obligation, but because they wanted to create new memories. One morning, when Daniel gently touched her cheek and smiled without saying a word, Sophia felt alive again. Not because it was overly romantic, but because she knew. In that moment, he was truly present. Connection isn't something that gets rebuilt in a single day, but each small, consistent, genuine gesture is like a drop of water falling into a dried-up riverbed. Eventually, it begins to flow again. And once it flows, the feelings you thought had died come alive, more vividly than you imagined. Sophia was no longer the woman sitting alone in a cold kitchen. She was the one who lit the first flame, and in doing so, brought her man back. Not through demands, but through the love she chose to nurture, day by day. Grandma Amalia didn't give Sophia a magic formula. She simply brought her back to a truth too many people forget. Love doesn't sustain itself. It has to be brought to life every single day. It needs real actions, honest moments, listening without judgment, and touch without reason. Love isn't stone. It isn't meant to stay unchanged. It's a river, and if you don't let it flow, it dries up in silence. We often wait for the other person to change, forgetting that we too can be the ones to spark the first shift. We complain about being unseen while forgetting to offer understanding. We hope, but we don't act. And then we watch love fade, all while clinging to the very things we should have released. Sophia chose action, not because she wasn't afraid of being hurt, but because she understood that waiting is the greatest risk of all. And that journey proved one thing: when one person begins to change, the whole relationship can be saved. When one person turns on the light, the whole room can shine again. So if you're feeling disconnected, if your relationship has gone cold, if you still love but can't see the way back, don't wait. Be the one to spark the flame. Be the first drop in the stream. Because love doesn't die on its own, it's just waiting for you to bring it back to life. Thank you for being here. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, turn on notifications, and like this video. Don't forget to leave a comment so we can spread positivity together.